Today, U.S. President Donald Trump was supposed to announce his decision regarding secondary sanctions against countries that buy Russian oil. But most likely, this will not happen. First, Trump wants to hear what Putin has to say. In Washington, neither the date nor the location of the meeting has been announced yet. President Trump only said that it was Putin who wanted to meet with him and that he is ready for contact in order to stop the bloodshed in Ukraine. The Kremlin, in turn, assures that negotiations will take place in the coming days and even names a possible host country. TSN's own correspondent in the USA, Olga Koshelenko, has the details.
The anticipation of a meeting between Trump and Putin is being fueled most actively by the Kremlin. After the visit of U.S. Special Representative Steve Witkoff to Moscow, Western media were the first to report on the possibility of face-to-face talks, citing their sources. They claim that Donald Trump himself allegedly told Western leaders and the president of Ukraine about this during a group call on Wednesday. But at the official level, Washington has not confirmed this. President Trump only said that the chances of a meeting are good. Meanwhile, Russian officials, including Putin's advisor Ushakov and Special Representative Dmitriev, were eagerly reporting that the meeting could take place in the coming days. When asked about talks next week, Putin nods affirmatively and suggests that the United Arab Emirates could serve as the venue. The main emphasis is that the desire to meet was mutual.
Interest was expressed by both sides, who said the first word doesn't matter.
But there is less enthusiasm for this meeting from the American side, at least publicly. The New York Post even reported that Trump is supposedly willing to talk to Putin if he also talks to Zelensky. The Russian dictator once again rejected such a possibility the day before, saying that certain preconditions are needed, and they are still far off. For the meeting to take place, Putin has to meet with Zelensky, a White House representative told the Post. The location of the meeting has not yet been determined. However, Trump himself later denied that such a requirement was set for Putin.
Does Putin have to meet with Zelensky for you to meet with Putin?
No, he would like to meet with me. I will do everything possible to stop the killing.
What exactly Putin promised a special envoy Witkoff during their meeting on Wednesday, which led Trump to announce significant progress in the negotiations, remains unknown. This week, Bloomberg published information about a possible air ceasefire, which would generally benefit Putin. He is supposedly ready to stop terrorizing Ukrainian cities with drones and missiles, which have no military value, if Kiev refrains from launching its own drones at Russian factories and oil refineries that serve the military-industrial complex. The Polish outlet Onet reports that Witkoff allegedly came to Putin with a proposal to cease fire in exchange for recognizing the occupied territories and postponing the issue for 49 or 99 years. As a result, the Kremlin would get rid of most sanctions and, in the long run, return to the energy market. No matter what versions appear in the information space, the Ukrainian president, seasoned by experience, commented on the negotiation process this week with restraint and consistently emphasized the awareness and involvement of the President of the United States.
Of course, everyone knows for sure that all key decisions in Russia are made by one person, and that this person is afraid of sanctions from the United States of America. And it is only fair that Ukraine should be a participant in the negotiations.
Another point, Putin does not want European leaders to take part in the negotiations either. But now, it's not so easy to push them out of the negotiation process. Since the United States stopped supplying weapons to Ukraine for free, the countries of the European Union have been buying them for us from Washington. Just this week, it became known about a contract between the U.S. and the Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark worth over $1 billion. The president of Ukraine spoke with partners by phone the day before and coordinated efforts.
Everyone is united by the understanding that Russia's war against Ukraine is a war in Europe and against Europe. All the decisions that will be made to end this war and to guarantee security truly concern all of Europe, not just one country. That is why Europe's voice must influence the process, and we are coordinating with our European leaders regarding our discussions and meetings to align all positions. Also, regarding the work each of us does with other leaders, so that Europe's positions are protected.
Meanwhile, today Trump's ultimatum expires. On August 8th, he promised to impose secondary sanctions against countries that buy Russian oil. Axios reports that after their conversation with the US president on Wednesday, European leaders were left confused. They still didn't understand whether his intentions regarding tariffs for India and China are still relevant.
Is your deadline for Putin still in effect, or has something changed?
We'll see what he says. It's up to him. Very disappointed.
Trump has already ordered the introduction of tariffs and penalties for India, which is refining Russian oil. They are set to take effect in 3 weeks and will reach 50%. China, which is the largest buyer of Russian energy resources, hasn't been targeted yet.
We're sending a ton of dollars overseas to India to buy their products under unfair trade conditions. India then uses American dollars to buy Russian oil, and Russia uses the American dollars it gets from India to fund its weapons to kill Ukrainians. Then, American taxpayers are asked to pay for weapons to defend Ukraine from Russian weapons that were paid for with American dollars coming from India. This needs to stop.
Trump himself seems to have gotten a taste for keeping up the tension through uncertainty and threats. The period of declarations and public tempting offers to Putin is over. But the time for decisive action has not yet come. From Washington, United States, Olga Koshelenko, Maxim Shinkarenko, TSN 1+1.
Donald Trump may meet with Vladimir Putin and then invite Volodymyr Zelensky for three-way talks. The fact that this could happen very soon was stated just the other day by the US president himself, after his envoy once again met with the Kremlin dictator in Moscow. The deadline that Trump gave Putin expires tomorrow. However, despite his disappointment with his Russian counterpart, the American leader does not seem to believe in the possibility of diplomacy to end the war against Ukraine. Are all the invited parties ready for such a meeting? What should we expect from it? And why is Europe, from whom Trump expects security guarantees for Ukraine, not being invited to the table? Radio Svoboda correspondent Zoriana Stepanenko will tell us more.
The last diplomatic push before Trump's deadline expires. For the fifth time now, his special envoy Steve Witkoff is in the Kremlin to personally persuade Vladimir Putin to stop waging war against Ukraine. But this is the first time since the US president set a deadline for Russia, having grown disillusioned with it and started punishing buyers of its oil with sanctions. 3 hours of productive but not breakthrough negotiations, as Trump would later say. After they ended, neither side revealed any details. Putin's negotiator, Kirill Dmitriev, only teased, saying, "Dialogue will prevail." It was him, as CNN later reported, whom the Kremlin leader proposed to Trump. Putin wants to meet and talk about Ukraine one-on-one, without Ukraine itself and without Europe. The US doesn't mind, but they want such a meeting to be followed by a three-way conversation with Zelensky.
There's a high probability that they will agree. We haven't decided yet where it will take place. We had very good talks with President Putin, and there's a very good chance that we can finish the round and complete this path. It has been long and continues to be so, but there's a good chance that the meeting will take place very soon.
The Kremlin reported that an agreement has been reached for a one-on-one meeting. According to Putin, a possible location is the United Arab Emirates. A summit between the leaders of Russia and the US is being prepared, and they want to hold it next week. Whether Putin's aide Ashikov, who shared these details, will succeed is hard to say. When asked about talking to Zelensky, Putin, as before, replies that certain conditions are necessary. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that a trilateral summit is possible when the positions of Ukraine and Russia can be brought closer together. Otherwise, it makes no sense.
If we manage to bring the conditions that Ukraine and Russia are willing to accept close enough, then the president will have the opportunity to meet with Putin and Zelensky to finish this matter. For the first time, perhaps since the beginning of this administration, we have concrete examples of what Russia wants in order to end the war. There was nothing like this before. Of course, the final say belongs to Ukraine.
The top US diplomat did not specify what exactly Putin presented to Witkoff. He only said that the key issue for ending the war would be the territories. Moscow has repeatedly stated that it will not abandon its goals in Ukraine, which include retaining control over its 4 regions and Crimea, ensuring neutrality, and reducing its army. Experts do not expect that Putin's plans in Ukraine will change after his personal meeting with Trump.
Despite the increasing pressure on Russia, Putin will be able to regroup and perhaps propose some steps like a ceasefire in the air, meaning to halt the bombing of Ukrainian cities. There have been discussions on this matter, and this can be considered a concession for their meeting. Overall, we have no reason to expect any significant changes in military objectives as long as Putin feels he is able to continue the war. In Kiev, Moscow's demands are considered unacceptable and are compared to Ukraine's capitulation. After the U.S. president's envoy left the Kremlin, Volodymyr Zelensky had a phone call with Trump. The NATO Secretary General, the German Chancellor, the British Prime Minister, and the President of Finland also joined this conversation. Among European diplomats, there are legends about Alexander Stubbs' golf diplomacy skills and his ability to persuade Trump on various matters. It is hard, however, not to notice the absence of the European Commission president, as well as the leaders of France and Italy, in yesterday's group phone campaign. By the way, the second and third largest economies in Europe have refused to buy American weapons for Ukraine according to Trump's plan. At the peace negotiations table, Washington has found seats for three leaders: Trump, Putin, and Zelensky. The presence of Europe there, which the U.S. president expects to foot the bill for aid to Ukraine and provide it with security guarantees, is not being discussed, at least at this stage.
We support a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. Our commitment to this has not changed in any way. As for these possible trilateral peace talks, I understand that the timing, format, and logistics still need to be worked out, so it's too early to say what will happen.
Following the group talks, Zelensky stated that the war must end fairly, and that this position is shared by the partners. Today, he is also separately calling each influential European leader, the German Chancellor, who witnessed yesterday's conversation with Trump, as well as the President of France and the Prime Minister of Italy.
The war is happening in Europe, and Ukraine is an integral part of Europe. We are already negotiating our accession to the EU. That is why Europe must be a participant in the relevant processes. Ukraine is not afraid of meetings and expects the same bold approach from the Russian side. It is time to end the war.
Analysts interviewed by Radio Svoboda do not expect a quick end to the war as a result of these summits, even if they do take place.
From the Russian side, this meeting will primarily be aimed at gaining additional time without any concrete process. This is the assessment of a potential bilateral meeting between Russia and the United States. A trilateral meeting with President Zelensky would be a very positive sign. Zelensky would ask direct and very relevant questions about the situation and Russia's objectives. However, if and when such a meeting does take place, I think we will already see at least some proposals for possible agreements.
Experts expect that the U.S. president will continue to put pressure on Russia by imposing tariffs on imports from countries that buy Russian oil. India now has 20 days to avoid 50% tariffs. The rates are far from those proposed in the bill by Senators Graham and Blumenthal. But analysts suggest that they will rise as Trump becomes increasingly frustrated with Russia dragging things out. Zelensky says that the Kremlin continues to refuse a ceasefire. From Brussels, Zoriana Stepanenko, Marek Hajduk, Radio Svoboda, especially for TSN 1+1.
The new American tariffs on imports from many countries, including ours, have come into effect. Ukraine has been included in a list of countries whose goods are subject to a minimum tariff rate of 10%. Meanwhile, for example, the European Union received a 15% tariff rate, just like Japan and South Korea, while imports from Taiwan, Vietnam, and Bangladesh will face 20% tariffs. For Switzerland, Donald Trump has set tariffs at 39%, while for Syria, Laos, and Burma, the rate is 40%. Some of the highest tariffs will apply to India. The day before, the U.S. president imposed additional tariffs on New Delhi because of its refusal to stop buying Russian oil. The overall tariff on Indian goods will be about 50%. Journalists have calculated that import taxes in the U.S. have reached their highest level in 100 years. However, it is American consumers who will have to pay for this. According to the Yale University Budget Lab, imported goods will cost them 18% more.